It's time for another edition of Student Stories. I'm joined by Natalie Easton. Hi, Natalie. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Good. Very good today.
So let's learn about Natalie Easton and what your story is. How long have you been here at Laredo College?
Well, I've been here for 2 years and a half because I started early. I graduated high school early in December, and I started in January, so I've been here for 2 years and a half.
Nice, and you're getting ready to graduate actually in May, correct?
Yes,
How exciting.
Very exciting.
I've got a lot of questions for you. I always like to ask our students where they went to school, so let's start there. Where did you go to elementary, middle, and high school?
For elementary school, I went to JBJ Muller Elementary, and middle school, I went to Washington Middle School, and then United High School.
Nice, so of the three, which was your favorite?
Honestly, it had to be, can I say college?
Sure, yeah.
I prefer college, you know, because that's where, I blossomed as academically and everything. And, I didn't have the perfect attendance in any of my primary or secondary schools.
Right.
And so,
I mean, who does, except that little group of people that never miss regardless of what happens.
And so out of all of them, college has to be my favorite.
Well, that's interesting. We'll jump straight to college then, since you identify with it the most. What has been so rewarding about being here at Laredo College?
As I started college, I started very anxious. I didn't have academic confidence at all. I didn't trust in anything I did. I'd make a paper and I'd go to the writing center like 20 times just because I didn't trust of what I would do. And the one thing that was just so rewarding is that to see where I started and how I am now is just I'm so glad that this college built me to be the person that I am right now.
Well, that's interesting. You give Laredo College a lot of credit. What was it specifically that really changed for you here at the college?
It was everything. The professors, the resources, the environment, the community that is here on campus. It was everything. There's nowhere I was turned away. I've been nurtured by every single one of my professors. There's not a professor that I have anything bad to say. And, they all pushed me to be where I am ultimately.
Yeah. There is actually a story about you on the Laredo College website. So let's talk about, I know you said that college has been the most fun or where you've found the most excitement, or it's been really good for you.
Yeah.
I couldn't even think of the words. But did you struggle in school before college?
I did really struggle.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, my parents were worried for me academically because during COVID, I was, completely not doing well in academics because it was just so difficult to not have that face-to-face contact. And all the way from elementary to high school, I didn't start blossoming till maybe mid 7th grade, where good grades were coming in. But I've always been an A/B student, never got student of the month. And so school was very challenging for me when growing up, especially since being undiagnosed with some mental stuff. It was even more challenging, If I had gotten that assistance younger, it would have been way better.
So nobody really picked up that you were struggling?
No, my mom did. And my mom, she didn't really know how to help in that area since I was the first one to say school's really hard for me, Mom, I don't know how to do it. So my mom did everything. She was a parent volunteer for my whole school experience. Every day out of elementary school, she was there volunteering her time for free, just to make sure if I had a panic attack, I know where to run to. If I had somebody bully me, I know where to go. My mom was always there for me. My mom was my number one support. And even to college, she's still my number one support.
That's beautiful. Can you remember when it was that you realized that you were struggling in school? Was it in around 7th grade? I mean, before that you were okay, or has
I always knew that I struggled because I got late diagnosed with dyslexia in 5th grade. So I knew that struggling was one of my things that I was going to have to face. And I always knew that it was going to be a little difficult. So in 5th grade, going to 6th grade, they gave me accommodations. And that helped a lot. But when I started struggling a lot, where I was like, oh my goodness, I need more help, was in high school when we were taking the TSI. No, a benchmark. We were taking a benchmark, and it was in person. And I had an accommodation for people to read to me. And one of the ladies was going like this, rubbing her arm, and I couldn't focus. And I was like, I can't do this. And I had a panic attack during the test.
Yeah.
And one of the administrators came to talk to me, and he was like, okay, well, take the test today. We're not gonna, penalize you. It's just a benchmark. Don't even worry about it. And so I had a meeting with the people with the accommodations, and then I started taking my test online with a computer. And that's when I was like, okay, I think there's something different with me. Like, this is not normal. I cry for every exam. Why is it like this? And so ultimately, like, I figured something was out there in high school.
Now, did you have those panic attacks and cry because you realized you were struggling, or was
I would get them because it was so, like, I felt judged for not knowing.
Yeah.
I've always had the title crybaby. Like, my whole life, I've always had that title because I literally would get a textbook and I'd start crying, because it was just so difficult to understand.
It's traumatic for you,
basically. Yeah,
basically.
because I didn't know what I had. So everything, I felt like, why that person has dyslexia, why are they so normal, And I just felt like it was just me that, like, had the issue. So I would cry out of, like, confusion and wanting to learn but not being able to, know. And that's why I would cry a lot, because I just didn't know. And my teachers in, like, those grades, high school, middle school, elementary school, I guess they didn't really see anything different. Majority of the faces I used to get when I would cry was just like, stop crying. Like, and I get that. I've been in a school setting, and I see kids who cry, and they have to react that way. If not, the kids, they'll cry more. And so I understand them, and I don't blame them. But, I didn't have that background of support where, I was
And they honestly just don't know what you're going through. That's the problem. And I can't even imagine what being dyslexic looks like. How do you define it for somebody who doesn't know? Like, what is it? How does it affect you?
Yeah, and it's so funny because a lot of people, it's like, oh, your B's and D's are, like, all mixed up. And even though you look at the book, all the words are moving.
Yeah.
It's different. I read something. I'm reading something, right? And everything I read myself, it goes in through one ear and out the other. I don't remember anything I read. And I have one of the biggest things that I have such a difficult time with is moving lines. I can't move lines. So I'll read the same line over and over again. So it's things with actual letters and words that I can't process.
And do you see things differently?
No, it's just more like it's just more difficult to, like, understand what I'm reading. And with words, like, obviously with big words, it's harder for me to understand what they mean,
Sure.
It's harder for me to use the context clues, like, oh, that's what that means, or read around the words. And reading gets just super, like, distracting for me. Like, I would read, and I never did AR because reading was just so difficult. I mean, like I said, the one thing that was so challenging was that I couldn't process anything I read.
Wow. So you come to Laredo College. Did you know you wanted to go to college? Were you concerned about coming to college because of the difficulty you were having?
Yeah, I was very concerned, but I have very smart family. So, it was kind of expected. Everyone else, I'm the baby of the family. Okay. So everyone else went to college, and my brother's a police officer. So my sister's in her master's, and I have another sister that's her bachelor.
Peer pressure.
So peer pressure, it was expected that I had to go to college.
Okay.
And
were you worried about that?
Very much worried, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But my last semester in high school really prepared me, because since I was graduating early, I had only a couple classes. And one of the classes I had in high school, it was a program where I got certified to be a teacher aide.
Oh, nice.
And I got to be, my first and second block was to be in an elementary school being a teacher aide. And so that really, like, you got this, you're going to be able to do it. But when I started college, I was, it was a hectic. My mom would take me to church, make me talk to the priest. Like, what's wrong with her? Like, can you help her? Because I was so anxious. I would go home crying every day my first semester.
And how did you get through that? How did you survive?
And like I said, it was everyone here on campus. Really? Those professors that I had my very first semester, I thank them so much for being so understanding and for, pushing me and encouraging me. Those are the professors that got me through a lot. And the counseling services here. Yeah. I have a wonderful experience with the counseling services. They have helped me since day one. I'd have a panic attack, like, right here, and then I'd run to the counseling services, and I'd just start crying over there, and they'd be like, it's okay. And it was just always such an awesome experience here.
Yeah. You're a few months away from graduating. Are you going to get your associates?
I'm gonna get my associates in arts and in the major of elementary education.
Okay, so obviously you're headed down the path of being a teacher then.
Ultimately, yes. And also, there's a couple things I'm interested in. I'm also interested in an educational counselor, meaning that I would be somebody to help with disabilities. Sure. And that's just something, it hits home.
Yeah.
And I just would love to be that helping hand that I didn't have in the lower educations. And so I would ultimately like that too.
So from Laredo College, where do you plan to transfer to?
To TAMU.
Okay, so you're going to stay in Laredo, and then do you want to go past your master's? Do you want to get your master's?
I want to get my master's. Ultimately, I want to get it in educational counseling.
Okay.
Because that's just like something that really intrigues me.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so that's the ultimate goal.
You gave a lot of credit in the article that I read to the Writing Center.
Yes, I love the Writing Center.
How did they help you?
Well, the Writing Center was very patient with me. That's one thing that I thank them so much. They literally like blossomed me. They're one of the very first stepping stools that helped me get to where I am right now. Very first step. I would go like almost every week. On Fridays, I would meet with a lady named Valentina. She's really sweet. She's still here. And I would meet every week with her with papers and everything. And she was so patient with me. I would misspell every single word and she'd be like, fix that. And then I would be like, okay. And then I'd move on, very patient, very patient. And I thank them so much because that was my pre-diagnosis of ADHD. So I was very, all over the place. Yeah. And she was able to help me so much, be patient. Maria was also she's the one in charge of the Writing Center. She also was very patient with me. So like if I ever had a panic attack too, she would help me out and say, hey, come to the Writing Center. You can just relax here, do your homework here if you want. And they literally got me to being a really good student because with my English class, for our final, we couldn't get assistance. We couldn't go to the Writing Center. That was one of the things. Your final paper, you can't get help. You're on your own, right? So I was like, I've gone to the Writing Center for every single paper. What am I going to do? And so, I sat there for 2 hours just looking at my computer. I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to write about? How am I going to brainstorm by myself? Yeah. And I did it. And Miss Elsa Gonzalez, she's no longer here, but she was my professor for my English class, told me that I was the only 100 on the final that she had ever given. And that was just like, wow, a dyslexic person getting 100 on a writing paper, that was so awesome for me.
But you were able to rely on the help that you gotten to
Yeah,
do
they
it on
taught
your
me because
own.
I would get the extra help. My teacher would teach me and she would help me in class, but that wasn't all I went for. I also went to the Writing Center constantly, getting my papers revised, them teaching me how to write a paper, and I always
that's what
self-advocated.
It's about, is teaching someone to do it eventually on their own, and you were able to do that.
Yeah.
Now, what about Trio? I know you had some experience with Trio.
I also love Trio so much. I used to work there as a tutor for a year for college algebra and mathematics, and I have only good things to say about Trio. They also pushed me to, they're my first job.
Nice.
That was my first ever job, and my family, females working is like, it's not quite normal, it's not expected of us.
Yeah.
My dad supports us completely, and he's like, you don't have to work, just go to school and that's it, right? So when I started working, my dad was like, you better finish school. And I was like, I am gonna finish school, like, trust me, Dad, I'm gonna do school. They let me do my homework there at school, like, it's gonna be okay. And my dad was just like, okay, pues, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm here for you if you ever need anything. And so I started working, and they were like my support system. Like every single one of my coworkers, the tutor coordinators, the advisor there, I loved it completely. My boss was awesome, Miss Vanessa Filizola. She taught me that it's okay because she has a very similar brain to me. So to see someone so successful with the exact same brain and the exact same disabilities, it's just like, wow, I can be that person one day. And it helped me know that I can get where I need to be.
The moral of the story is the resources here on campus are there.
Yeah.
And you're a success story.
Yes.
And we want people to know that all of these resources are available for someone like you to succeed. That's amazing. It's a beautiful story. It sounds like you're inspired a lot by your family, Natalie. Who would you say is your biggest role model?
My mom. Yeah. My mom is my biggest role model because she taught me how to love, to care, to be empathetic and sympathetic. And she taught me the ways of being a good person. Yeah. She taught me that don't be rude, be nice to everyone, whoever you know, whoever slaps your face, you turn the cheek and let him do it again.
Sure.
My mom always taught me that, you know, don't retaliate. You always treat those who treat you unfairly with kindness. My mom has always taught me that, and she's the sweetest person. I always want to say, whenever I make a new friend, I'm like, I want you to meet my mom, because she's so awesome. And it's my mom that's taught me how to be the person that I am today.
What do you do when you're not studying?
What do I do when I'm not studying?
Yeah.
At church. I'm always at church. I love going to church, if it's just to go pray the rosary or to go do anything involved with my church, or also helping homeless. I like to carry food in my car because I like to give them food on, you know, or helping animals too. I love animals. So I also carry dog food in my car.
Very cool.
And I like to do things like charity work and stuff like that, and helping with people. That's something that I really love. If I could, you know, I always told them, can I just tutor for free at the trio?
Yeah.
I always tell them, can I just tutor for free? I don't want to have to be like on a schedule, but I just tutor for free. And every class that I have, I always give all my classmates, you know, a welcome hand, like, hey, I'll stay after class if you need me to like tutor you or anything. And the same subject I'm learning with them. And I've always just done that with every class that I've had.
I'm curious, just going back a little bit, do you find math easier? Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that's with the dyslexia, because because there's always a solution to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I like it so much. And one of the people that has helped me so much with my, you know, experience with mathematics and making me feel awesome in it was my professor, Miss Diana Pescador. She's so amazing. The way she teaches is just like everywhere I missed in elementary school and high school and middle school, everything I missed in those areas, she builds them up here in college, which is so awesome because she takes the time to teach me how to multiply or something like that. She teaches me how to do long division. And she's so caring and tedious. Like, she stays after school. Even I'm taking a class right now with her. Every day after school, she stays with me till I finish my assignment. And that's just something that warms my heart. And so much. She's like, I always say she's like my mom on campus. I always just look at her, I'm like, oh, you're my mom on campus, of course. And so she's just very nice. And that's why I like math.
So your free time, you don't watch movies or shows or anything?
I try to, but
social media?
I like being outside. I like being with people. I like being outdoorsy, being with my family. One of my favorite things is spending time with my family.
Nice.
And my boyfriend, I love being with them. And I just love being with people that I love, you know?
If someone is struggling, just like you were, they see this, what's your message to them?
That to know it's possible, you know. Don't be discouraged if you weren't good in high school, because a lot of times people say, oh, you weren't that good in high school, you're not going to make it in college, it's going to be so much harder on you. I didn't get very good grades in high school. I was absent all the time. And middle school, elementary school, even more. And now I'm in college, and I have a 4.0 GPA. So you tell me where that takes you. So
yeah. And what about Laredo College? If someone's considering Laredo College, what would you say?
I would really, really recommend it. You know, I advocate for it so much, and I do everything I can to tell people, you know, go to Laredo College. You know, it's the best college here in Laredo, and I wouldn't have been so successful if they didn't start me here.
Wow, that's a great story, Natalie. Anything else you want to add?
No, just come to Laredo College and use your resources here. If you need anything, there's everything here. I always say this is my first home, not my second home.
Sure.
Like, they have everything you need here. Just come to Laredo College, it's awesome.
Nice, and a lot of the services that you talk about are accessible through our website at laredo.edu. You can look up TRIO, I believe you can look up the Writing Center and things like that.
Yeah.
So, Natalie, congratulations on your upcoming graduation.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, and I know you're going to do a lot more, and congratulations on just getting by and doing what you did.
Surviving.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.